Well, hi, everybody. Sorry, I'm a few minutes late. It's been a little bit of a crazy day. I'm so happy to see you and to talk to you tonight about our ancestral altar creation. I need to do one more thing before we get started, so bear with me. I should have done one more thing before I sat down. Hold on. Okay, now I'm officially back. Woo! A lot of you were up late last night with some crazy. So today's a new day, and so we're moving forward. So I'm going to smudge really good. It's my third smudge of the day. I am so happy to see you. Is anybody here for the first time? I would like to be able to say hi to you and welcome you if you're here for the first time. We've had a couple of people join, and so, which is fun. It's always fun to have somebody new come into the fold and to be able to welcome you. And then next year, I suspect, because the format of sabbatical is going to be a little more open, I think our group may expand, but we'll see what that looks like. You never know. Sabbatical has always been kind of a tight, sweet container. So Bonnie's here for the first time. Nicole, is that you? And yeah, so Bonnie's here. Nicole. So good. I see Summer. Just want to welcome you and tell you how glad we are that you're here. So thank you for joining us. So once a month we do crafting. This is a very untraditional crafting session for us because usually I've got, and Erin's here for the first time crafting live, usually I have a thing in front of me that I'm making with you. Let me give you a little bit more of the sage smoke. This time I don't. I posted a video for you, which hopefully you saw. And no worries if you didn't. You can go back and watch it later. You can hang out with me for the hour, and then you can go back and watch it later. Oh, and Denise says this is her first live event, too. It's so fun. I know. Actually, well, Haley, sabbatical is going to be the same in many ways in terms of having the community and learning together and things like that. This just structure is going to be a little bit different. But our community, it could end up being very much the same as it is now. I just want to, I'm opening to different courses that I want to teach. And so figuring out how to structure all that will be very interesting because I really want to have my gem class and I really want to have my aromatherapy class because the book will be coming out probably mid next year. And so I think it'll be a fun opportunity to have an entire aromatherapy class for which I can then use my book as a textbook. So I'm excited for that. Okay, so hopefully the video was helpful for you. Just in terms of showing you what the what our ancestral altar here at Sage Goddess looks like. And I want to remind you that altars are so unique to the person that's making them. I really want you to put your fingerprint on it. You know, it's like what your ancestral altar is supposed to look like might be very different from mine. Probably not too different. So we want to talk about some common elements tonight that need to be on your ancestral altar, I think. The first and foremost being pictures. That's my Yaya. That's my dad's mom. Hard to tell, but when she was young, I looked a lot like her. Very, very, very magical woman, that woman right there. She lived a very long life. Not necessarily a happy life, but a long one. And so we'll talk about ancestors tonight and how we, how we work with their energy. And also tonight's going to be a little bit about altar building basics because there's a little bit of protocol. Can you see the resemblance? It's kind of funny. I mean, it's hard when someone's so much, so much older, but what a wonderful woman she was and how much she shaped me, even though I really didn't get to spend any time with her. It's very sad. I know that she had pictures of me all over her house when she died. But because she lived in Greece and because my parents didn't like traveling back and forth, I didn't get to spend very much time with her. And so some of us are working with our ancestors in a way, closer now as we build an altar and really start to dedicate some of our work and our resources and our tools to them. In a way, some of us are doing closer work with our ancestors now than we did when they were alive, which I think is really cool. There's no reason why your relationship can't be very special with your ancestors, even though they're gone. If you believe in a spirit world and a veil that's very thin, and the idea that the ancestors are sort of like right sitting next to you, photony, My grandmother's name was Fotini, which means light of God in Greek, light of God. So, Grandma Fofi, as we called her, Yaya Fofi, could be sitting right here for all we know, right? Yeah, she was, my dad sees the resemblance. It's very cute. My sister was always very jealous of me growing up because she always thought my dad favored me. And it's funny because even my husband's like, well, he kind of does. And I said, I don't think he favored me, but I think I looked so much like his mom that it's hard when someone looks like so much like someone you love. It's like, I think you just naturally sort of gravitate to them because you love them so much. Okay, so we're going to talk about all of this tonight. Sabrina says, does it matter if they're not biological? My grandmother adopted my mother. It sure doesn't, because you know what? Here's the thing. And we've never talked about this before in Sabbatical, but you're bringing it up, and it's a great point. I actually think that when we're adopted, there's a lot to that. In fact, I would go so far as to argue that your adoptive parents are still part of your soul network. Does that make sense to you? I don't know what your thought is, but I've always thought that. I've always thought, if the universe is as wise and structured and intentional as we believe the universe is, and I really, really do believe that, then things like adoption can't be arbitrary. Like it doesn't even make sense. So it's like, I think that they are guardian angels, part of our soul network, people who are meant to come in and to do certain kinds of work with us for a certain period of time. But I just think that there's something to it. I'm glad that that's helpful for you to think about too. Yeah, and I think the same is true for stepbrothers and stepsisters. I have a stepbrother. I'm 43 and he's 55. So he's quite a bit older than I am, but he was from my mom's first marriage, and he's my brother. I mean, we are so close that you wouldn't know that we're only technically half related. I mean, we are such kindreds. And what's really funny is my son looks just like him. I mean, my son, his DNA is only half mine, but then you look at him with my son with my brother, and it's like, he's your line, I mean, there's no denying it. So I don't know. I don't put a lot of stake in that. I also think some of our friends are just friends in life, are stronger soul connections than a lot of our families are. And I don't know if that's because we've known each other for a long time. Like, I don't know exactly how to explain that, but I do think a lot of the people that we think of as friends have known us for a long, long time. And I'm comforted by that. There are even women in this circle where I think, gosh, you know me better than, you know my soul better than a lot of people who've been in my life for a long time. So I think it's just fun to sort of like play with the idea that we don't necessarily know who our ancestors really are, right? Because it's like you can have a blood relation that you're like, oh, I don't really feel that, or I don't feel the connection. And then you can have a stepbrother or, a step grandmother or whatever who just feels so much like your kind. And I think you should honor that. Like when that happens, I think that's really special for you, rather than saying, oh, well, they're not my true family, or they're not whatever. Like honor that and really sit with that. There's a lot we don't know. And it's very human because we want to have answers, right? So it's very human to go, oh, well, that's my family and that's not my family. And to kind of like they're in and they're not in kind of thing. It's very human, but there's something so much more to the connection. You know what I mean? So we'll talk about all that tonight. I want to talk about consecrating tools tonight. And we're gonna do it in kind of an informal way tonight. And then I will put something formal in the classroom for you tomorrow. So we're going to talk about consecrating tools and altar spaces, and I'm going to give you like the general upshot of what I think needs to be said. I like to keep things very simple because I don't like to carry around paper and scripts, in case you've noticed. I mean, I always print out the full moon, the directional invocation. I always print that because I read that at the full moon, but I try not to read anything if I don't have to. Because I think it disrupts the flow of ritual. I've gone to rituals before where I've sat and the person is just reading like for an hour and I can't stay awake. So I really try to be present with you. And even when we're talking about invocations and consecrations and dedications and all those things, I like to keep it active. Okay. Haley says she can't see me. I'm not sure because I think everybody else has a clear sight. So maybe try refreshing your page, Haley. I'm not exactly sure what's happening, but I want you to be able to see me. So yeah, well, I just think it's good for you to be open-minded. I told my team to bring pictures to put on our ofrenda, to put on our altar space. And it's funny because everybody's first thought is grandmother, or grandfather, because we all think of grandparents as being like the primary ancestors. But it's so much more than that. My mom's sister crossed over when I was very young. When I was in first grade, she died. She was 39. And I feel her around a lot too. And so even though she was very young when she died and I didn't know her well because I was still a child, there's always been this kinship and this connection. And so I like the idea of working with her energy. And so you can say, well, she's so young, with that. I've had people ask me if that counts as an ancestor. Don't they have to be, it's like, I don't think so. I don't think they do have to be young. So Lee likes my mug. It's been one of those days, you guys. Okay. So I do have a couple things on my altar here. I usually keep a little quartz skull, kind of like the one I gifted last week to Jamie. I have a beautiful wand that's always on my altar that's made out of bone. This was made by that beautiful artisan on Etsy who does all those like incredible shells. And so she carves a lot out of bone and wood. It says a Lemurian quartz point on it that she gold dipped or gold leafed. So I always keep a little bit, couple tools on the altar that sort of represent the ancestors or ancestral connection. I also tend to keep items on my altar that have animal spirits connected to them too, because animal spirits are very important ancestors as well. That feels really good. So I tend to keep like deer antlers, or this is a beautiful bobcat paw smudge wand. Paw makes for a great handle. This was ethically sourced, so I feel good about having this on my altar. And I was mentioning that in the video too. It's like, if you don't know where the animal came from or how it passed, I wouldn't use it as a sacred tool. But because I know where these tools come from, I'm comfortable using them. And then it's funny because I have magic on both sides of my maternal or my grandmotherly line. Both the paternal grandmother and the maternal grandmother are both really magical people. And so I keep pictures of them both here at the shop. And it's funny because my maternal grandmother picture I keep downstairs and my paternal grandmother picture I keep at my desk up here in my office. So they're both around all the time. Okay. Yep. Haley, you're all caught up. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about consecrating tools. Now, there are different schools of thought about consecrating tools. And the idea of consecration is this. I'm going to try and break it down and be really simple. Please ask questions, because this isn't just even about tonight and your ancestral altar, which, by the way, I want to see pictures. So we're going to go through all of this. You'll have seen mine downstairs. Mine is a big, huge table. Yours does not need to be that big. I'm obviously making an ancestral altar for, our customers and the people who work here. So I want people to be able to put their pictures there. It had to be a big enough table. But yours can be very small. My very dear friend, Pixie Campbell, always puts a picture of her ancestral altar up on Instagram and different things. And sometimes it's just a picture with a bone and a stone, and a beautiful feather or something like that. She does not go crazy with the amount of stuff that she puts on her altar. And I actually really like that. There's something to be said for simplicity. So think about that too when you're putting everything together. It's like, do you want to keep it simple this year? You could. I mean, we only have 2 more weeks really to have all of the things up. So you can go fully elaborate with skulls and things hanging and cobwebs and all the things, or you can do something very, very simple like Pixie does. And I think it's just as beautiful. So it's up to you. Heather says, does the photo only need to have the deceased relative by themselves? No, I think you can put, I'm not morbid that way. I don't think if you put a picture of a deceased relative with 2 living relatives next to them on your altar that means anything. So I think it's okay. Some people like to do these really cool collages. I'm not that gifted in Photoshop, so I don't do it, but where they take the different pictures and they make a little collage, you know what I mean? Or you can do that in Instasize. There's an app on the phone, I think it's called Instasize, where you can put different pictures and you can like use your fingers to make them bigger or make them smaller, like to pinch them or push them so that it sort of like, expands the picture. And so if you're not technologically savvy like I am, if you don't have good Photoshop skills, I have skills, but they're not great. Upload your pictures into Instasize, and then you can use your fingers to like pinch it or pull it and make enlarge the picture of your grandmother, or, decrease the picture of your cousins or whatever if you're worried about that. Instasize is good. And plus it lets you choose like a color for the background and stuff. And I don't think it's expensive to download. So that might be a good option for some of you who want to make some kind of collage, but it's more complicated with other tools. Okay, well, Nicole, you're just in time. She said she picked up stones today, wanted to draw some stuff to put on the altar, but stalled on it. So maybe it's a sign. you're supposed to hang out with me for the next half an hour, and then you'll be ready to go and do all the things. Oh, I love that. Heather, it's really funny. Heather says she has her dog's tags, and so do I. So do I. I have my dog's tag, my sweet Bella, who died last year, who I'm still mourning. I don't think you ever really get over it. I have my cat's tags from 10, 15 years ago. And so those are beautiful things too, to put on there as well. I like that too. Yeah, so you decide, it can be all of that and more. Some people put like star beings on their ancestral altar. So they'll print out pictures of, sometimes you see those pictures of like Lemurians and aliens and star people and stuff, and they'll put those pictures on the ancestral altar too, which I've seen that, and I think that's really cool. If you feel like you have like a certain lineage, like you believe you're Lemurian, why not? Why not, let that be an ancestor to you as well. That's so sweet. I love the idea because, it's funny that we all did that, isn't it? That we all kept the tags. Like I have the little paw prints and stuff too that they give you, when your animal passes away, but the tags. Because how many times did I look at that tag, How many times did I put that leash on? And so I think for me, the energy of the tags is really, really special. So how many times have I looked at those tags? I still think about that. They're in my jewelry box at home. And every time I go to put, a piece of jewelry on, it's like, there's her tag right there. Oh, I love that. I love anatomically correct hearts. It's sort of like the sacred heart design too that you see in Mexico sometimes. It's so special. That's very cool. Okay, so Haley mentioned a really good point. Yeah, so let me mention Lemurian thing and then Haley's point too. She said she's feeling resistant. So if you're feeling resistant to putting up an ancestral altar, just check in. Is it because you're working with an energy that you're still processing, which Haley, for you, certainly all of us, I think, would say that we would understand why. You might still be processing the energy of that loss, of that transition. So just check in with yourself and don't force yourself to do something that doesn't feel aligned for you right now. Like maybe you'll feel more like doing an ancestral altar next year. You'll have all this wisdom and you can start putting things together in a small box and just tell yourself, you know what, next year I'm going to do it early on October 1st or something. I'm going to do my ancestral altar. We have learned that the year goes by very quickly, have we not? So you're not missing out on anything too much. And then I think it was, who asked me to go back to the Lemurian point? Oh, Charlene. So to the point about the Lemurians, what I wanted to say, I just want to make sure I'm caught up to date in the feed. So yes, Charlene. So what I want to say about that is think about your ancestry in broad strokes, okay? Not fine strokes, but broad strokes. So you have your material ancestral line. You have your mother, father, grandparents, great-grandparents, great-uncles, great-aunts, all those things. That's your material line. That's your physical line in this life. But your ancestry is much bigger than that. And so let's say you went to Cusco, Peru, and you could feel that you're home. You know what I mean? Like you could just feel that place, I'm making this up, but like what if, right? You went to Cusco and you just know you've got some Peruvian ancestry or lineage somewhere. You can print out pictures of the place or the pyramid or wherever you went that felt like that and had that resonance. Why not put that on your ancestral altar? You know what I mean? That to me, ancestral is really about all who have gone before me to create the path that I walk today. I feel like I have to say that again. To me, the ancestral is all who have gone before me to create the path that I walk today. And for me, that's much more than Grandma Fofi and Grandma Pearl, you know what I mean? Although they were pivotal. And then their mothers, who were also magicians, also pivotal, right? So obviously there's a line. But I really love the idea that it's so much more than that. And so I have many friends who look at pictures when they see pictures of Lemurian people on, like when they Google things, and they see a picture of what they call Lemurian, like the tall blonde, vision of what they say Lemurians and Atlanteans look like. I have lots of friends who look at those things and say, that's my line. Like, I know. And I have a friend who, I swear to God, she has got to be Lemurian. I mean, she looks like, do you remember in Lord of the Rings what the fairy folk looked like? They were very tall and very skinny, and they had sort of long faces, beautiful though, right? Like with really fine features and like sort of pointed ears. She looks very elven. Like, there's no way that she's not that. And when she says, and by the way, there are lots of rumors that they use Lemurian images of Lemurian people as inspiration for all the elven folk in Lord of the Rings. I'm just saying, I think there's something to it all. And if I were to show you a picture of my friend and show you a picture of the Lemurian guy that everybody pulls up on Google, you'd be like, that has to be her relative. I mean, how can they not? The tall, the ears, the skinny, and all the things. Like, and when she walks, it looks like she's not moving. It looks like she's on one of those people movers. It's just too crazy, right? Yeah, I love that. And so these are great points in the feed, which is why I'm addressing them. If you don't want to make this a visual thing, like let's say the altar, to her point, is like too much to take on right now, then yes, writing a letter is beautiful. Writing a letter to the ancestors, thanking them, offering gratitude, so thankful that you lived your life the way you did, and so thankful that you were brave enough to do all the things. I mean, when you think about your ancestors and what they had to go through to get here, and I think about it like with my dad, as he gets older, how grateful I am that he, got on a boat at 16 to come from Greece with literally like $1 in his pocket and didn't speak English to come here and live this dream, and left his mom. He was the youngest of the 6 kids. And how hard that was to leave his mother and come here. It's like, when I think about the ancestors, there's so many moments where I just catch my breath and think, how can I ever thank you for my life? Like, truly, how can I ever thank you for, the minor dumb things that I think of as sacrifices? Like, really, I didn't leave my mom at 16 and go on a boat by myself with no money and not knowing the language of the place that I was headed to try and make a better life. Like, I didn't do that. So there are brave, magical, powerful people in our line. And I think part of the beauty is if those people are still alive, like my dad would tell you if he was standing here, every time I see him, I hug him and kiss him and tell him how much I love him and how grateful I am for him. It's like, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. I cannot thank you enough for this incredible life. And, were my parents perfect people? No, but I think about the bravery and the courage and the sacrifice. And so this is really powerful. And then I think about my grandparents, right, who lived through wars, and my poor grandmother who had 6 children in Greece and had to feed them blood, cow blood, because the war, their village was decimated. They had no structure over their heads and there was no food to eat. And she had 6 kids, including all the way down to my dad, a tiny baby, and no food. So they had to eat grass and drink blood to survive. They did that. So, and we all have these stories. I mean, you have these stories too in your family of like, what the sacrifices, right? Or when I was little going, talking to my dad and saying, hey, Dad, do you have any pictures? Like, Mom has all these pictures of her family. Do you have any pictures? And he looked at me and he was all teared up and said, we had pictures. We don't have anything. Everything was destroyed in the war. There isn't a single picture of him before the age of like 8. There's one that I posted on Facebook. And then after that, there's nothing until 16. It's just a crazy thing. We take so much for granted, even pictures. The fact that we have pictures is like miraculous of these beautiful people. We're so lucky just to have the image of them, to be able to even like look at them and say, that's my person right there. I know it's crazy. But again, my family's not the only one. Most of our families live through war of some kind on some continent. But you have to just, I'm in constant like prayer and gratitude for just what had to be done. And think about that with you. Think about the miracle that you are. And this is what, from this place where we're talking right now, this is the place from which I want you to build this altar, okay? Is like this place of gratitude. And yeah, Elizabeth's saying, my dad slept with bricks from the fire to keep warm. Crazy. And like down to the minor details, right? Like the back, my dad's always been insecure because the back of his head is flat. When you have a baby, you want to give them tummy time and things to make sure that their head is nice and round. You know what I'm talking about? You don't want to just lay your baby flat on its back and like leave it alone a lot because it'll have a flat head forever. My dad's head is completely flat because by the time he came along, the war was happening. My grandmother went into this crazy depression and then like didn't move all day long, and nobody picked him up. So he like laid in a bed all day, every day. Crazy, crazy, crazy. So it doesn't matter where you came from. It doesn't matter. Sheree's saying, I totally am feeling my ancestral altar needs to be its own altar away from my Samhain altar. Yeah, you know, and here's the thing. I think that's true. I think your Samhain altar and all of the, you know, New Year and all of that should be separate from an altar that's just a little place for you to go in the morning and say, thank you. Thank you. And wouldn't it be cool to kind of leave it up all year long? Like if you could make it small enough, I'm talking like small, right? Like a picture, a beautiful candle, and I don't know, a Lemurian quartz or whatever you feel called to put with your tools. And I try not to overprescribe when it comes to tools because I really think this has to be unique to you. Obvious stones for this are Picasso jasper is fantastic for honoring the ancestors. Petrified wood is another obvious choice. Really, really good for doing that kind of work. But you may have something that, you know, fits so perfectly for your, or if you have a beautiful necklace. I wasn't lucky enough to receive jewelry from any of the people in my family because just nobody had jewelry. They sold it all to support themselves. But if you were lucky enough to inherit jewelry, how special, you know, that you have something like that. So if you're not wearing it, or even if you are wearing it, take it off and put it on your ancestral altar and just sort of bless it with your gratitude along with all the other tools that you are using. And so think outside the box a little bit. I do have a little glass rabbit that my grandmother gave me when I was little. It's one of the only things I have from her because she didn't have a lot of possessions. So I treasure that, and it doesn't look like much. It looks like a little glass rabbit, but it's very special to me. And so what is special to you that you have? You know, what is special to you? And put it there. Oh, I like that very much that you're using that, Denise. That makes me happy. Okay, so consecrating tools. So once you have whatever you're going to use, let's say, you know, I'll just use my little Flower of Life disc as a little plate here. So let's say I'm going to use this generator, and let's say I'm going to use this skull, and I have my picture. Let's say I'm going to, you know, put my picture with it. And maybe you want to put a little, you know, maybe you want to have a little smudge bundle there, or a little tea light would be nice too, just to put a little tea light and have your lighter. But again, my advice is to keep it very simple. And then what I recommend you do is take your selenite. You can use a wand for this too. However you choose to open a circle, whatever your athame or athame is, and just go around your tools one time, one broad circle like that. And then that just opens the container. And then keep it very simple. And I like to say things out loud. I don't just think them. I like to say them because I think spoken words have a lot of energy. So I like to say it out loud. And so I will look at my tools. You can close your eyes and just say, I dedicate these tools to the work of honoring my ancestors. I consecrate them for this work so that they are used only for the purpose of raising and holding energy that connects me to the ancestors in my line. I intend that these tools will honor and create space for connection with those ancestors who have moved toward the light, those ancestors who have pursued their own healing once they cross the veil. So at this time, I do not dedicate these tools to connect with ancestors who have not crossed into the light or pursued their own healing. I ask that those ancestors be held back until they're able to cross into the light and complete the healing process. But those ancestors who do walk with me, whose presence I feel all the time, and you can name them, you know, it's my grandma Fotini, my grandma Pearl, my Aunt Joyce, to those ancestors whom I know are present all the time to this work. I welcome them to this space. I ask that they see, if it's possible, as I like to ask that they're able to see how honored they are in the space that I inhabit. So I ask that they're able to see this space. I ask humbly that they bless this space. And I ask that they continue to offer me their presence when needed, their support, their encouragement, their love, their compassion. In the case of my ancestors, there's a lot of understanding for me and who I am and what I do. So I ask that that love and compassion and understanding of who I am and what my gifts are, that continues to pour and flow through. And then just check in here. What else do you feel needs to be said as you're setting this up? What do you need from your line? Are you looking just for the connection? Are you looking for information, wanting to know more about them or where they were from or what they did? What is it that you're seeking as you connect with the ancestors in this way? And then articulate it, invite them in for that reason or that purpose. And since this is an energetic container, I ask that these tools be kept safe and that I am offered a sense of peace and connection anytime I approach this sacred space. I ask that these tools be used by Spirit to be transmitters of a deep intelligence, ancient mysteries, wisdom that transcends time and place. And lately, I don't know if it resonates with you, but lately I've been asking for the voice to be louder. Like, I'm ready to hear. So when the messages come through, I ask that the ancestors' voice be loud and clear. Let the wisdom come in ways that I can recognize. By the way, you can be repeating all of this as I go through, but let the wisdom come through in ways that I can recognize, in ways that I will understand, in ways that I can act upon in my own life. And most of all, help me, give me the peace, the wisdom, the understanding, the patience to be a good steward of all of the energy that I'm the recipient of, all those decades, all those millennia. Help me to be the one who's able to carry it forward with grace and with courage. And what's really interesting is as I talk, I can sort of feel, and I want you to notice if you feel it too, whenever the ancestors are around, I almost feel like I could lean back and I'd be held. It's like you can't fall. And I think that's one of the beautiful gifts of working with the ancestors, is that it's almost like they're just a network, of a web behind you that holds you tightly. I'm going to go back up to Heather's question. I've always been told that the ancestors who are in the right relationship were able to work as helping spirits. Yes, it's very much the truth, Heather. So we do have ancestors who don't cross into the light. I believe that. Most of my shamanic friends believe that. And so we want to invite only those ancestors who have done the work. I think when you cross, this is my theory, by the way, none of us really knows for sure. I think when you cross, you are given a choice. And I don't know if it's instantaneous. It could be where it's like, okay, in this moment, if you agree, all of your healing will be brought up to present time. It's like all the past of your line will be right here. And then the next generation of your line can move forward from there. Do you know what I mean? I think we're given that choice. I don't think everybody chooses it. And I don't know why. I don't know why, but that's my perspective from where I sit. Yeah, and so you can't. I know we always know part of what happened in our life. We never know the whole story. But you may have done things. Let's forget the ancestors for a minute. Keep drinking my tea because my throat's dry. You may have done things that you weren't proud of in a past life. Have you thought about that? And so asking for forgiveness and healing, not just for your material line, but for your soul DNA. You know, you may have done things that you aren't proud of. In fact, I would say we probably all have. And so as you're doing this work and connecting, I think it'd be very helpful. Charlene, I'm not sure. Yeah, Fran, this is the thing. So what I'm sharing with you guys is just my lived experience. Like I've sensed with myself and with clients when I used to do readings that they had ancestors who had not crossed. And I was always shown this like way station. I never knew really what it was, but I would be shown images of like a way station where the soul would be crossing over and sort of, it's like a reconciliation station. And it's like, okay, well, What are we going to do here? You know, are you going to allow that healing to like finally transpire and be shifted and transmuted so that your soul moves into another evolution, or not? And I think some people, like, honestly, I could foresee my mom saying no. She's just a tough cookie. And so I think we have choices that we can make. So anyway, that's why I say only the ancestors who have moved into the light and made the choice to engage their own healing, those are the ones who are welcome here. All the other ancestors, I ask you to stay across the veil. Yeah. You don't know, Charlene. That's the really challenging part. You don't know. But I'll tell you something. If you feel an ancestor around all the time, I think they made the choice. I think if they didn't make the choice, you don't get to feel them all the time. Does that make sense? That's hard to say. But certain relatives I don't feel around all the time. And I think sometimes I don't know what that's about. But the reality is none of us will know until. We won't be able to have this conversation again, but none of us will know until. So we have best guesses. Okay, so once you've done that and you have called upon the ancestors, you've declared your intention for the space, you've consecrated and dedicated the tools, here's what that means. Are you ready? So what that means is these tools are not to be used for anything else. And in a strict interpretation, that also means they're not to be touched by anybody else, okay? It's really challenging here at Sage Goddess because I have certain spaces that I have dedicated and consecrated, and people with very good intentions will come in and just sort of like start moving things around. And I mean, they'll tell you, like, I've gotten upset in certain cases because it's like you set up a healing altar and you've dedicated and consecrated it, and then the tools get used for something else. And what happens to the energy? It's like, you know, it just dissipates. So once you have set something up and dedicated it and consecrated it, either tell people if it's at home, like tell your partner. I used to teach my kids. I'm not fully keeping up with the thread, by the way, so don't think I'm ignoring you. I'm trying to focus. I used to tell my kids, just no, don't touch that. That's Mama's special. And so they still to this day, like, don't touch my crystals, really. They'll ask permission, like, can I touch that one? But my kids are really good. And so you can teach your little ones about sacred space too, even if they're tiny, just, to say, you know what, that's Mama's special. And if you want to touch that, you need to ask Mama first, or, or that's Grandma's special, or that's Auntie's special. And if you want to touch that, those are my special things, and that's called sacred. And when something is sacred, it means you need permission. Little kids will be like, okay. And I remember Zoe one time saying, that's sacred. It was very cute. Okay, so it is. It's Mama's special. You can't say it in such a complicated way. You can't say that is a sacred altar that has been built, dedicated, and consecrated for this sacred purpose. Kids will be like, what are you talking about? What's happening? Okay, it's cute and it's sweet. And and people comment. They'll come into my house and say, I cannot believe you have all these like things around that are so fragile, and you have little kids who throw balls and stuff. And I'm like, my kids know exactly where they can throw the ball in the house and where they can't throw the ball in the house. Before you touch people's things, you should always ask the permission, even if you don't think you need to. It's just a kind, considerate thing to do because they could have consecrated those tools. Like tarot decks, unless you are in a reading with someone and they are handing them to you, you should not touch people's tarot decks. There's a lot of things to that. Yeah. Do that with my husband. Well, the shadow season is going to be gone soon, and to that I'm going to say good riddance because it's just been real exciting over here. And I can't even. That's really funny, Heather. That's really funny. Okay, so once your tools are dedicated to your purpose, so you've said, I am using these tools for this purpose, I ask for them to be blessed, I ask for the energy to be raised in alignment with my highest good, and that it support both my healing and the healing of all my line. And you can heal your line backward, current line, forward. For the healing of all my line, then we say amen, aho, and so it is. Amen, aho, so it is. And those tools then are energetically aligned, connected, dedicated, consecrated to that work. You don't have to do anything else to prepare them. It is done, okay? What you have to do, though, when you're done with them is you have to deconsecrate them, which means like rolling that tape back to say, I release these tools from this service to this work, and I open the container now. I don't know why that camera isn't focusing. Here we go. I now open the container to allow these stones to work for a different purpose. So imagine the visual of that then is almost like when you're consecrating or dedicating, you're opening a circle clockwise, yeah? When you're deconsecrating, imagine that you're opening a counterclockwise circle or releasing the circle. So when you're ready to unconsecrate or deconsecrate, and it doesn't have to be anything this size. Like I'm gonna, at the end of like probably 2 or 3 days after Halloween, after All Souls Day, I'm gonna deconsecrate the altar down there. And so I will go all the way counterclockwise around it with a selenite stick or my wand. And then I will say a very similar prayer of deconsecration, which is, I now release these tools from their service to this work for which they were dedicated. I give thanks to the energy of these crystals for magnifying the energy of my work with my ancestors. Before you completely release the energy, okay, the one thing I always ask is, and you can hold them when you ask this, I always say, before I release you, tools, do you have any additional or final messages for me? And put my hand over and get very quiet. Because a lot of times there's residual information. And so see if you can hear. And if the message is not clear, you can close your eyes. You can ask that these tools will communicate with you in dream time, which you may not remember. That's okay. A lot of the work that happens in dream time for you, by the way, is not meant for you to remember. People always come to me and go, you know, my dream recall sucks. I cannot remember my dreams, or I never know what I dreamed. And I always tell them, you know what? You're going to remember exactly what you needed to know from those dreams. And then everything else, you're going to wonder, why don't I remember? And it's because it's not a conscious integration. Remember I talked in that video the other day about passive integration and active integration? Active integration is, I had this dream. I know exactly what it was. I saw these people. All this weird shit happened. You know, but passive integration is, I had this dream last night and I can't remember what it was, but my heart feels full. Or I had this dream last night and I know you and I were talking and having a conversation. I don't know what we said to each other, but I feel like my heart is lighter. That's passive integration, if that makes sense. Interesting. Trixie, I'm just reading the feed a little bit. Okay, so once you have asked and downloaded whatever is left, like stored wisdom on these stones, because you want to release that. You don't want to, this is not a bank account for stored wisdom. You don't want these tools holding wisdom that they don't need to hold. So what you can say then is, for any residual messages, I ask that they come to me in dream time, or that they are transferred to me in another way. Again, let the messages be clear, let the voices be loud, and communicate with me in ways that I will understand. And it's very interesting because when I did my ayahuasca journey, I could see information being transferred, like from just in the air to me, or to my, some of it was being transferred behind me. It looked like it was going into my back. I don't know, but information gets shared in different ways. I thought I understood how information was shared across the spirit time, but after that ayahuasca journey, I was like, I had no idea. It's interesting how information gets downloaded and passed, and that some of it comes to the front of you and some of it goes behind you. And I don't quite know what that is, but anyway, so let all the information be transferred and stored where it needs to be. Any information and wisdom or guidance that I'm not prepared to receive and accept and work with today, let that information be transferred to me and put into a holding place until I'm ready. And then just say, you know, I give thanks to the ancestors who've come forward while this altar has been active. Many thanks to the ancestors who come forward while the altar is active. As they return to their rightful places across the veil, I ask that they are blessed and that they're allowed to rest, knowing that they are serving this present generation and those who will come after us. We give thanks to the ancestors. We ask that their souls are able to rest in peace. And then anything else that comes to you. So you've now deconsecrated the tools. You've given thanks to those who have come and who have connected and communed with you while you've had your altar active. And so anything else that you feel needs to be said, I usually keep it really short and sweet, but you certainly can make it very elaborate. You know, there's some people who just really like to have a long thing, but for me it's thank you. You know, thank you for communing with me. Thank you for reminding me that I'm not alone. I'm not walking this path alone. I didn't come here alone, you know, that there's a legion of energies behind me. I'm so glad you guys are enjoying this, you know, and this is exactly why we do what we do, because when we make the intentional move to connect with our ancestors, so much comes forward. And my goal with this conversation was for you not to be myopic. You know, it's like one picture of one grandmother, one bone, one feather, you know, it's like, your ancestral altar can be so much more than that, and can include your beautiful animal spirit friends. Yes, you can. And Denise, I'm doing this myself. Part of the inspiration for this is I wanted a little bit of a kick in the pants to do my home ancestral altar, which I have not done before. A lot of my stuff is still packed, so it's kind of challenging for me, but I'm going to leave mine up. And so if you're going to leave yours up too, I think it's fantastic. Maybe we can just take pictures and share with each other. Other things to consider incorporating. Are you ready before we go? And after you deconsecrate your tools, amen, aho, so it is, always, okay? You've done the circle counterclockwise, but I just want to make sure you close it with the affirmation. So if your ancestors loved certain things, now in Mexico, you'll see bottles of Patron tequila, and you'll see oranges, and you'll see candy, and you'll see cigarettes, and you'll see, because they put things that their ancestors loved on their ofrendas. Ofrenda means offering in Spanish. And so, you know, don't be afraid if there's something that your ancestors really love. The idea is that when you put the things out that they really love, it means they come more easily from the other side to commune with you. So oyster shells to Jennifer's point, gin for Sarah's dad, whatever it is. It makes me shudder a little bit to think about what my kids are going to put one. White sage and a bottle of Cabernet and purple hair dye. Yes, and so Bonnie's asking, do you need to consecrate tools again after a time if you leave the altar up for an extended period? Bonnie, in my experience, only do that if your altar's been disrupted. Like, let's say somebody came and just, little kid, threw it all on the ground, and you're going to rearrange and put it back together. That's a time to reconsecrate. Other than that, you don't have to. My prosperity altar has been on one little tray for about 5 years, and I have not moved anything on that tray. I have not rededicated it. I have cleared it with sage, just, you know, blowing the smoke over. Sometimes I pray, or like I actively do meditation in front of it. Like on May 5th, I did my 5-5 ritual there. But unless you're taking something and just like, you know, removing everything, or here's the other thing I'll tell you. No one is allowed to clean my altars except for me. Like my mom, I remember a long time ago when I was young, she was like, oh, you didn't clean up your room. I'm going to clean up your room. I was cleaning everything and just took everything apart. I very lightly dust my altar. I don't take everything off, and I don't clean it, you know, with rubbing alcohol and stuff. I'm not freaky about the cleaning of my sacred space. So if you have to kind of like allow for dust, you know what I mean? It's not going to be the most immaculate thing if you're leaving it up. But if you're okay with that, which I am, I kind of like that idea. Very cool. Well, are there any other questions I can answer for you before we break for tonight? I can't believe we went by that fast. The time went by. I love what you're writing. Beer, tea leaves, Jack Daniels. I love it. Flowers. Here's the other thing. Keeping flowers. If you look, actually, Asian people from different parts of Asia are really good about putting up ancestral altars and altars to the different deities, and they tend them on a really daily basis. Have you seen? Like they'll put fresh fruit or a new incense stick. Whenever they burn one, they put a fresh one down, or they'll put little, like, you know, sweets, or and they usually have fresh flowers, fresh water. I love how they tend sacred space a lot more in Asia and the Eastern traditions than we do here in the West. So maybe think about putting a beautiful vase with some flowers, especially if your ancestor loved flowers. I think that's really special. Whatever you think. I thought about with mine, my grandmother, there was nothing she really loved in particular, but she had a very hard life and never could afford much. And so I always think about putting like, what would she love? She didn't have any jewelry. So sometimes I'm like, well, should I put a piece of jewelry there? Or should I put something to say, if you were alive, I would really spoil you? You know, like I think about things like that too. I'm just checking the feed really quick. All right, everybody. So we have the weekend off, and then next week we get busy again with all kinds of magical things happening. Don't forget to save the date, because on 10:30 on the 30th of October, we're doing our private sabbatical ritual, which is going to be a drum journey to Elder Council. If there's one night that you don't miss in 2016 with me, October 30th is that one night not to miss. It's going to be really magical. I've already been given so much downloaded information in my meditation getting ready for it already, which is early for me. Let me just tell you, it's going to be a very powerful journey for all of us. So make sure you have everything you need going into the 30th. I'm so glad you liked tonight. I was very, very happy to see you and happy to spend the time with you. Thank you for the little boost of beautiful, good energy. It's going to be good. And it's going to be, I cannot believe it's Halloween. I mean, it's like, really? Not this weekend, but next weekend we're doing all the things. Sunday is the 30th, and then Monday is Halloween, and we're already into November. It's just shocking to me how fast the time has gone by. So yeah, so Sharon, I'm going to be, the things I just said to you, like everything tonight, the consecration and the deconsecration, I'm going to write that up for you tomorrow and post it so you actually can print out, okay? And I'll put it both in the Facebook group as well as on the classroom page, so that, you know, some people like to use the classroom more than Facebook, so I want to make sure everybody has access to it. And then what I would like to say is make it your own, okay? I mean, I love that if my words resonate with you, that's fantastic. But I also like the idea that you really customize this and you keep it, you know, and then the more you do that with all the blessings, you put them in your own words, you add your own kind of fun little twist on things. Maybe you have your own way of a closing. Maybe it's not amen, aho, so it is. Maybe it's some other thing that you love to say. And I love the idea that you create a book with all of your own customized, you know, blessings and openings and invocations. I think that's how you take your practice to the next level. So use mine as inspiration. It's just going to be sort of a skeleton for you. And from there, you know, add things that are really unique to you and the words that have meaning for you too, you know. I'm glad you're inspired. All right, everybody, go do the thing and then post pictures so I can see what you do. I'm going to set up a very simple one at home too, and I'll share that with you as well. When that's all done, I'll probably do it this weekend because I'm feeling inspired too. I love you guys very, very, very much. I sent a big chunk of my book off today. I had a huge deadline on top of everything else. So I'm very excited to see that project come to fruition. It's quite a dream come true. So I will see you all very soon. Have a wonderful weekend. Enjoy connecting with your ancestors. Remember, just get up in the morning and say thank you. You know, I love the idea that we all have some tiny corner of our home or our, wherever it is you put it, your studio, that just is a space for you to look at them and say, I honor the place I came from every day, because we wouldn't be here without them. So aho to the ancestors. I'll see you guys soon. Love you very much.